So, welcome back to another episode of the Makers Podcast. My guest on today's episode is the co-founder of Leon Restaurants, John Vincent, who launched it in 2004 with Henry Dimbleby and Allegra McVitie.
Yeah, McCavity.
Yeah. There we go, nearly there. John, it's a great pleasure to be with you. How are you doing today?
Oh, good. I'm well. Is it well or good? I don't know. I'm a bit of each.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to your lovely office.
Oh, pleasure.
How long have you guys been here?
I think we've only been here about 8 weeks. We were very cramped together in Borough Market, and we were literally, I was going to say literally on top of each other, that's probably not the right phrase, but a lot more space here and a lot lighter.
That's great. It's very nice.
Yeah, we don't need to ship the heaters in the winter or the air conditioning in the summer, so it's nice. It's a step forwards.
Awesome. So I asked all my guests 3 questions to begin with.
Yeah.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Do you know what? Is it really bad? I think I had some cashew nuts because I was in a hurry. Yeah, I had some cashew nuts.
It's good breakfast.
Yeah.
And what is the one thing you wish you did differently before you turned 20?
Oh, before I turned 20? Do you know what? Things were going quite well up to age 20. Up to age 20. Look, I could argue up to age 23 because I wish.
23.
Yeah, do you know what? I wish up to age 20, everything was cool. I think probably I went to university and got completely unfit. You know, I was one of those people that was quite sporty at school.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I'd exercised 20 to 23 because, I think that might have set me up in life a little bit better. But I was like, look, I exercised at school. I don't need to exercise at university. I've done that. So I just think, probably early on I wish I'd stayed fitter.
Awesome. Yeah. And what is your favourite company right now, apart from Leon?
What, without saying Apple, like everyone else does? My favourite company right now? My favourite company is a company called Responsible Travel, actually, who run by a guy called Justin, who is really focused on helping us reinvent travel so it has less of a negative footprint on the planet. And he has this principle of small giants, which is small companies can make a very big difference. And I think he's done that with his company in terms of influencing travel more broadly.
So you've always been a bit of an entrepreneur, I guess. You started, I think, your first small venture while you were at college with the Innocent founder, Richard Reed, doing musical nights.
Yeah.
Dance evenings.
Yeah, good. I didn't even know that was on the public record. Yeah. My first job was actually as a journalist for my uncle who had a journalist agency at the Old Bailey, from age 14 to about 21. But at university, Richard and I used to promote dance events. We had our own little advertising agency together, and I did sort of with him an event called Please. We promoted other events, and it was fun. Yeah, it was like literally about 2 years before us, everyone was jumping up and down to Come On Eileen and going to bops, and then suddenly out of nowhere dance music appeared, and we were like part of the literally the first year that danced in a different way. So that was when dance music was first sort of on the scene.
Awesome. And so I'm sure most people know what Leon is, but can you just help us describe what Leon was all about?
Well, hopefully Leon is if God did fast food. So that's really the central organising principle or the central organising idea that really we think about, which is fast food has to be in the middle of the high street. It has to have the format of something like a McDonald's. It has to have very recognisable products. It has to be fun, but everything else about it must be different. So it must be, Mediterranean diet influenced ingredients, kind to the planet. People that work there smile because they want to smile. All of those things are really what sit behind the idea of if God did fast food. And we also know that if it's fast food, it has to be international, and it has to be ubiquitous, and it has to be of a certain scale, so that it has enough capability to be part of the zeitgeist. So that's really how we think about what Leon is.
And take me back to those early days when you were launching your first restaurant on Carnaby Street.
Yeah.
What was that first day like?
We were rubbish. Literally we opened about, 2 months late or 6 weeks late, because we literally couldn't fix the extraction. When you think about restaurants, it's not about strategy. It's not about value chain analysis or slides. It's literally, can you get the electricity and extraction to work? And we, in leading up to the first day, we just kept having to train the team again and again and again. And they thought that it was like some kind of, we put CCTV in because we had to because of the insurance. And when it was going in, the team suddenly thought they were part of some reality TV show and that the restaurant would never open. And so we had to sit and say, no, you are not on some reality TV show. This is a restaurant that's going to open one day. And one of the builders, they're both called John and John, he literally he wasn't the skinniest, he was such a lovely guy, but he literally got stuck in the venting, the extract venting, and we had to pull him out. So it wasn't going that well to begin with. But then on the first day, I mean, I wouldn't say, obviously the first person came in, I jumped out with my camera, I must find the photo, and she panicked, and she was trying to act as if she always came here, and we knew that she didn't always come here because she was our first customer. She kind of looked at us and panicked, looked at an apple that was on the counter, picked it up, bought it and ran out, and we were like, So whenever we open a new restaurant now, the first customer gets a bunch of gifts, including an apple.
Really?
So that became a little bit part of our folklore. But the other thing that happened on the first day, we had a guy called Brahim who basically had said in the training, look, John, you're going to need to not have the kitchen open. You're going to need to put a door on there because dogs will come in. And I was like, mate, no dogs are going to come in on Carnaby Street and walk in to the kitchen, right? First day, a dog with no owner that we could see walked into Carnaby Street, walked through that gap into the kitchen, right? No dog has ever gone through that gap ever since. And Brahim was like, see, I told you.
And they ate all the foods?
No, unfortunately, we saw it happen. But I mean, literally, it was like, Brahim, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. A dog will walk into the kitchen. So, anyway, so that happened on the first day. And then at the end of the first day, we sat down and we were like, oh, no, look at all the things that went wrong. I mean, look, we don't need to give two sides of soups. We don't need to give a choice of white or brown bread on the wrap. We don't need to say eat in or take away, and if it's eaten, put it on a plate. So, every day for the first week, we had to have a get-together, and we made big decisions that changed what Leon was in that first week, operationally. So it was, I tell you what, it was not easy. We certainly didn't know what we were doing.
Well, the original idea was when you and Henry were working at Bain together, when you were going to lots of meetings to, I think, a big telecoms company.
And mobile telecoms.
One of them. And you were eating lots of unhealthy foods. But I think you have 5 original ideas to choose from.
Yeah.
You chose foods.
Bloody good. God, that you should be employed by GCHQ. You got good research. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, Henry and I were thinking, you know what, come on, for God's sake, this is so unhealthy what we're eating. And we're doing so, the food that's available late at night, the food that's available on the high street, the food that's available on the service station, it's just not doing us any good. And so when it came to kind of working out, okay, mate, let's think about what we could do together, this was the most glaringly obvious thing based on our experiences. But we did have, each of us, 3 or 4 other ideas that we'd written down. And sometimes I think, well, I wonder whether we could have made a better impact on the planet if we'd have gone with those other ideas. But I can't remember what they were. But I was thinking, maybe it's not a very good idea just to go for the one that happened to be common. Maybe there was a better idea on his list or a better idea on my list. But we thought, oh look, it's the same. Let's do that. So that's how we got to do this idea.
And why the name Leon? Where did that name come from?
Well, it's actually my dad's name. My dad died last year, and we didn't explicitly name it after him, but we wanted a name which didn't mean anything. It was a nice name. And of course, I guess secretly I wanted to name it after him, but that wasn't explicitly what we thought or explained to people. But it was just a name that was, you get Leon's, Leon, in a lot of Mediterranean countries. So there's often a town called Leon, not Ly, but Le. It's a very peripatetic name, as in it's quite an international name. And I quite liked the film, or very much like the film, that's called The Assassin in America, the one about Leon the Assassin. Not Leon the Pig Farmer, I've never seen that one. But so for all those reasons, I thought, it gives the brand flexibility. It doesn't really mean anything. There was someone that at the time wanted to call their business Nutrilicious. And you're like, oh no, let's not do that. So we wanted a name that was very flexible and that was just nice, a nice name.
Awesome, I love it.
Yeah.
Nice. And you now have over 52 restaurants?
Yeah, we do. I think we've got, do you know what? We might even have 70 actually.
Nearly 70?
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's update the website, mustn't we? Yeah, we've got like 70 restaurants. Yes, mostly in the UK, but a couple in America, DC, Washington DC, And then there's Oslo, Dublin, Amsterdam, Utrecht, and Gran Canaria.
So when did you realise in the Lyon journey when you really thought, right, we've got some scalability now to really grow the brand?
Well, you see, we had I remember in the first restaurant we had a target of £14,000 a week revenue and a high case of 18,000. And I remember getting to 14 and thinking, oh my gosh, we've hit our base case. And then we had a big boost, and we got, fortunately, and thanks to all the judges, we got mentioned as the best newcomer at the Observer Food Monthly Awards.
Really?
And I have to say, all credit, thank you so much to Observer Food Monthly, because that really gave us a big boost early on. From there, we thought, okay, this is now profitable. Let's try another one. So we tried Ludgate Circus, which slowly built. And then we made a mistake. Our third one, we got Brompton Road, where we were behind a tree. You couldn't see the tills from the street. So we learned a lot from actually having to close Brompton Road in the end. I think it might have worked today with the brand recognition, but it wasn't quite the right site. So, there certainly have been a hope and expectation that it's scalable, but lots of lessons and expensive lessons from sites that we opened. I think we've probably closed about 3 restaurants in our history from restaurants that just didn't work. I'm minded of the Subway person who, I think his first restaurant failed, and people say, "We need to give up." He said, "No, I'm doing another one." The second one failed, and people said, "You need to give up." He says, "No, I'm doing another one." His third restaurant was successful. Now it's by number huge, the biggest in the world by number of outlets. So we definitely have had hurdles to overcome, and we've just tried to jump over them.
So to get the business going, you raised £260,000. Sorry, 650.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was more than that. Yeah, 650. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
But you gave away 50% of your company.
Yeah, we're stupid, aren't we?
50%.
No, don't remind me. It doesn't make me feel very well. I remember the investors actually. The lesson for everyone. The investors said we'll take 40, and then just before the deal, they said we'll take 50. Actually, we've changed their minds. Oh, and also it needs to sit behind a hurdle of 15%. So you've got to be very careful in the early days. And I would say money was available at that point, but it wasn't cheap, as you can see from that valuation. So I think we made a bit of a mistake early on. Yeah.
Are they still involved?
Mistake. On a minority basis, yes. On a minority basis. So that's good. Anyway, don't make me upset. Next question.
Getting back to the revenue. Doing £14,000 a week was pretty good for a first comer back then.
Yeah, I think it was quite good. I think the concept before us was doing 7 a week. So we knew that we were doing eventually 2.5 times what the previous brand had done. So we knew we were onto something.
Well, what I love about Lyon is where our office is in All Streets. You've got one in Moorgate.
Yeah.
Whenever you go in there, and all the other chains, all your colleagues, they all have a nice, friendly smile.
Oh, good.
They're always very welcoming.
Oh, thank you.
Good service.
Good.
How have you built that culture in the Lyon family?
Well, it's nice to use the word family, and it can sound a bit creepy to people who are out of the company, because they thought, are you building some kind of cult? But I think the first thing is to, and it sounds so trite, but every single individual at Lyon has the same kind of life at Lyon as my mum's kids did. My mum's a teacher, and she was like, you know what, John, every single child's an individual. You've got to understand every single individual for who they are. Don't treat them like those white boiler-suited people that James Bond kills at the end of Bond movies in Dr. No's lair. Every one of them has got their own journey. Everyone has been on their own difficult journey. Everyone's got their own hopes, dreams, self-ideal that they're trying to work towards, whatever it might be. So I think that the first thing we do is we make sure that the managers are the most important people in the business, in the company. So whilst we're sitting here today in the support team, these people will be constantly reminded that however grand they think it is to work in the support team, they're not as important, inverted commas, as the restaurant managers. Because there's nothing worse than the restaurant managers feeling that they are the victims of some head office set of procedures and rules and protocols. So that's the first thing. The managers are the most important. Secondly, we then delegate to those managers to look after their teams. And they try to be as clear as possible with what success looks like for the teams. So the teams there's no ambiguity to the team members about what success looks like. And then my job is to look after the well-being. Once that's clear, we try and get out of everybody's way so they can do their job. I try and look after the well-being of the managers, and the managers try to look after the well-being of the teams. And that's on the basis that you don't need to constantly kind of drive people. If they're clear on their objectives, if they're motivated to achieve them, your job then becomes, roadblock clearer, getting rid of any reasons why they're not achieving their well-being. So that's really the kind of approach that we take. And it's based on a presumed trust, and it's based on, as well, a positivity and celebrating lots of great things that happen.
That's really interesting, yeah. And I'm sure it's taken a lot of time to get all the puzzles right and all your chains.
Yeah, because it is a bit of science. It's a bit of scientific engineering added with a little bit of just humanity. Yeah. So it's like, where does the magic and the science collide or come together on things like culture change? It's interesting.
But then I guess how have you... So I guess a lot of entrepreneurs can get quite ill about focusing on the minor little details if things go wrong.
Yeah.
The pump's breaking, the coffee machine's breaking. How have you learned to step back from that and just let your team get on instead of quite minor details?
No, you're right. Actually, it is the toughest thing when you're growing a company, which is quite deeply operational, like a restaurant chain, to be able to get that balance right. I mean, just the other day, I was in a restaurant, and all of the tables outside were messy, and I was told it was a group that had just left, etc., etc. But I still find it very difficult not to get frustrated by that. And I know someone that runs a well-known group of members clubs who still every night gets sent by the bartenders pictures of the cocktails they've made, etc., etc. So I think that my view is be clear on the outcomes, celebrate lots of successes, but do have an eye for the detail where you're going in at weekends, you're spotting all the stuff that's happening. It's the bit in the middle that I try and delegate, which is the process by which people manage themselves to achieve that. That's the bit I don't think I have the capability to micromanage. I have the ability to say, here's what good looks like, I trust you to do it, or by the way, I'm spotting all the great stuff that's happening, all the detail, and I'm also spotting the great stuff that isn't happening that could happen. So I think that for me, and everyone is different, right? But for me, I have to still have a high attention to detail on what's actually happening. And then emotionally, I think I've got a lot better at it. And I think the process I've been through of writing a book called Winning Not Fighting, which has been a big lesson for me of drawing on the lessons of Wing Chun, which is a kung fu martial art from the Shaolin Temple, strongly influenced by Taoism and Zen Buddhism. In writing that book and understanding the 4 doors, or the 4 sets of doors that one goes through in that martial art, and having experienced it, that has been the great step change for me in the last 5 years of staying emotionally stable as things go, in inverted commas, well, or as things go, in inverted commas, badly. So I think for me, it's been the practicing of the martial art and the practicing of the philosophy of that inside Leon, around things like positivity, not forcing, being in flow, going for the targets that present themselves, and not overexerting the organisation, and trying to kind of make it such that the organisation is in flow. That has been the step change for me in the last 5 years.
Cool. So are you going to every restaurant every week to make sure everything is going in all flow? Or
do you know what? I spent a year where I spent Mondays working in our Victoria Place restaurant, and that was really instructive. Now we've got 72 and they are in different countries. I can't go every week.
Yeah.
So I would say I do rely on, I probably go to about 15 a week.
Really? Wow.
But it's definitely the area managers and the managers that I trust to look after them. Obviously we get a lot of data back, a lot of feedback from guests. We'd love them even more. But we get a lot of feedback from guests which allow us to see trends or jump on challenges immediately, which we do, and then we go to those restaurants that are either doing particularly well or having some challenges. Actually, it's the place that I go if I need sort of a bit of a uplift. It's the restaurants that I go to, because the teams that don't, they're on living wage, They get up early at 4:30 in the morning. They're incredible people. They love to serve, and actually they're the best. They're from all over the world, and they're fantastic people. So that's where I get the lift of actually spending time with them in the restaurant. They're really brilliant people.
And do you think part of that motivation for them is, I heard and saw you do like massage days for them, you give them, lots of perks and incentives. Do you think that's really important to...
I do. I think the core job is more important, as in, do I believe I'm doing something worthwhile? Do I have a team spirit that's supporting my mental health? And is my manager managing me in a way where I'm loyal to that manager? I would say the core of that actually has an even greater impact on well-being, because it's your mental health that then starts impacting how you feel physically. But the things that we do add on to that, which is the opportunity for them to come to the crew to do Zumba, massage, yoga, etc. All the support team and managers have 4 days a year at my house on 5-element acupuncture, Reiki, psychology, etc. Those things really matter, but they are only there to support making the actual day job better. And the challenge we have, I think, is it is actually, by its very nature, a difficult job. Working in a tight, busy fast food kitchen, having to work on the front of house when you've got people coming at you all the time, next customer, and you're on till, trying to remember how the till works. It can actually be quite a daunting task for people, and they have people's lives in their hands. We know that, don't we? From all the things that happen and have happened recently, which have been very concerning for the industry on things like food allergens. But these people who they take their job extremely seriously. I was doing a focus group yesterday with the Carnaby Street team, and it's just another reminder of how seriously they take their job, how they recognise they've at one extreme got people's health and well-being in their hands, and the other is they recognise the fact that this is for some people the highlight of their day when they come to a Leon, they come for lunch. And so you have that expectation that you can delight people who are spending their hard-earned money on lunch or dinner. So I think if I was a banker or consultant again, I think I'd like people who are guests of Leon to know how much respect there is for the money they're giving us, and but also how the people at Leon enjoy being of service. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're thinking, I wish I was a banker. They're like, you do your banking job, I'm going to do my job of giving you food. Do you know what I mean? So I guess there's a sense of self-esteem amongst the people that work in the restaurants. Do you know what I mean? Which is, and I'm proud to serve, which I love.
And you don't get that anywhere else.
No, bless you. Thank you for saying that. Listen, and everyone will always have some bad experiences at Leon, I'm sure, but hopefully they're less frequent than more frequent.
Well, I guess looking at the flip side, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of entrepreneurs who are starting new businesses or new entrepreneurs, they have a lot of jeopardy. They have a fear of the unknown. Yeah. How have you embraced that, and how do you just learn to just do it and I guess learn as it comes? Well,
if I can reference this book that Julia and I have written called Winning Not Fighting, there is, in knowing who you are and knowing the fears that you have, it doesn't necessarily mean doing away with those fears. I mean, Branson wrote that book, I think, Feel the Fear and Do It. Oh, no, maybe he didn't. Someone else wrote. Who wrote Feel the Fear and Do It anyway? Anyway, I can't remember who it was. But I think the point is you're not going to feel unafraid. You're not going to feel like, oh look, there's an ice cream van.
There's an ice cream van just behind us.
Isn't there? That's a nice ice cream van.
Leon ice creams.
Isn't there that story that mums tell their kids it means they've run out of ice cream when they hear that sound? Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to carry on despite that. It's going to be a nice background, the ice cream van. There you go, stop. So I think understanding that the fear that you have, the frustrations you have, the anger that you have, are all part of what you might call ego, and that it's difficult to really dispel ego, but you can kind of move beyond ego into this state of just being and just doing and not judging, and not being distracted by that. That is both a philosophical idea and a practical idea. And there is, a great book which was called The 5-Second Rule by a woman called, I think it was Mel Robbins. She was saying, look, don't try and overcome procrastination or fear through willpower. Literally count down from 5. When you get to 0, do whatever it is that you're afraid of. And that sounds trite and simplistic, but there are stories after stories of people that have applied that. They've still felt fearful. They've still felt a sense of ambiguity, but they've just got on and done it without judgment. And I think there is a need not to indulge in that fear, because there's a story around the story of Choi, which we put in the book, which was this guy who had a horse, and he was a poor man, and someone, the horse ran away, and his neighbour said, "Oh, Choi, you're so unlucky." And Choi said, "Well, maybe." The next day, the horse brought back 2 wild horses, and the neighbour said, "Oh, you're so lucky." And Choi said, "Well, maybe." The next day, the son broke his leg trying to tame the 2 horses, and the neighbour said, "You're so unlucky." And he said, "Maybe, we're nearly there." And the next day, the army tried to take his son away, and they couldn't because the son had a broken leg. And the neighbour said, "Oh, you're so lucky." And Joyce said, "Well, maybe." And I think the point is, you can't judge wherever you are in your cycle, in your business. You absolutely cannot judge where you are. What might seem like a bad day might actually be the window into something that is actually very good in the long run, or non-judgeable in the long run. So I think the story of Choi is something that's worth people having in the back of their mind.
We can't wait to read your book, but you mentioned that about ego. One of your quotes in one of your articles was, "There is no ego in business." And what I think
that ego is dangerous in business, right? So ego certainly exists in business, but it shouldn't. Ideally, it shouldn't. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And what I find really humbling about doing this podcast, for example, a lot of the entrepreneurs who I meet, they are very down to earth. They haven't really got that ego in the business. I'm sure they're very motivated. How have you learned to embrace that and just be down to earth, well-being as you've grown the Leon brand?
Well, I think it happens at an intellect. The reason about the danger of ego in business, you realise at an intellectual level, and then more at a kind of visceral, physical level. Because at an intellectual level, you see so many people who do, in big business, who do M&A deals because they think it's going to make them look good. We all know examples of M&A deals, mergers, acquisitions, where they've gone completely wrong based on ego. Then you often have the fight between who's going to be the chairman, who's going to be the CEO, all that sort of stuff. That's often egotistical. And deals, purchases of factories or whatever. If ego gets involved with those decisions, and you're not acting out of pure rational or intuitive thinking, actually, then you can see intellectually why ego gets in the way, and it's not actually a good thing. And people often don't want people managing them through ego. And ego really isn't just the big I am. It's the big I am that comes from fear or anger or shame, or the things that project into this false peacock-like attitude. And I would say it doesn't mean that a founder of a business or an entrepreneur doesn't come across to other people like a powerful force, because I think often when you put aside ego, you come across as more powerful. Does that make sense? You come across as more, when you're clear and you're not acting out of ego, everyone's clear. So it's not like we're saying just be like the Zen monk in the corner, but don't act out of what the right thing to do is. And the other thing is, I find being very open about who you are as the leader, displaying that, saying, look, I am this size, shape, jigsaw piece. These are my strengths. These are the things I don't do well. I need help on. Please help me on these. These are the times when I'm under stress, I act in a way that projects anger. That's what I default to as an Enneagram 8. More details in the book. I think laying your stall out to the team to say, this is who I am. Now let's look at who you are. You can navigate the company and the development of the company with full consciousness about who everybody is. And the more a leader can be openly vulnerable, sincerely, then the more that organisations, I think, respond to that by not projecting their own fear onto the situation. And I would say though that my personality type is Enneagram 8, so I'm the challenger, and my biggest fear as a challenger is being controlled by others. And then in turn, my biggest challenge is making sure that I don't then project that anger and that fear onto other people. And so one of my constant challenge is I have to make sure that people are comfortable telling me that something has gone wrong. And I think in founder-led businesses, I've noticed, especially with my personality type as the challenger, because I can be quite a forceful character that doesn't like to be controlled by other people, that, I've tried to sort of learn from the airline industry in terms of, if the engine's on fire, you've got to just say the engine's on fire. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You can't pretend the engine ain't on fire, right? So if there's a process issue, let's fix it. Do you know what I mean? All of those things are really important, and they come part and parcel of trying to make the organisation fun. My biggest thing that I've had to work on is creating an environment in which people can speak up about anything they want to. And I think that's something that I'm still on the journey of, but I think I've got a lot better at it in the last sort of 5 years.
Well, I think that's so important because I think, again, in one of your articles or interviews, you mentioned you're approachable at all times. You even mentioned, I think, to someone who came up on the street, you said, go and get the local manager to introduce me to you by email. Yeah. And I think that's so important in companies, as, to be honest, it doesn't happen a lot. And especially when you're on the size where Leon is, it's so important to, I guess, make it happen. So you may not know about changes that's happening in the business, and it's better to know now, fix them, and then carry on with the business, I guess. Yeah. But if we step aside from the business, you've just written your new book. Yeah. Tell me about it, and why did you want to write it?
So this is the first non-cookbook that I've written, and it's really it's based on a martial art called Wing Chun, about what we can learn from this martial art, about life and business. And there are books that are written about learning from golf in terms of business, or learning from tennis, and it really isn't like that sort of book at all, because Wing Chun is really quite a fundamental way of thinking, quite a fundamental way of life. And it was a martial art that's, interestingly, about not fighting. And it's a martial art that was developed by women. Well, certainly two of the main people involved in the creation of the martial art were women. Moi, and then latterly Wing Chun herself, which means beautiful springtime. And it's very interesting because it's sort of, as I was writing the book and exploring these 4 doors of Wing Chun, become conscious and know yourself is door 1, bridge and connect with others, door 2, free yourself, door 3, go back to kind of mastery and immersion in door 4. It was fascinating about working out how we could apply the principles to Leon across the last 5 years. So, knowing yourself, which is knowing who the organisation is, knowing who everyone is, making sure they know who they are, equipping them with things like Jungian psychology, so they can understand themselves, understanding the role of their subconscious, their archetypes that they have. All of these things are fascinating to people. And they don't get taught it at school. You don't get taught, here's who you are. You get taught, here's the sun, the earth goes around the sun, and here's the periodic table. But you're not given the periodic table or the map of yourself. And so for the first time, when we teach people about themselves, it's fascinating for them. And they start to act differently. They start to act with more confidence. And they start to then connect with others differently. And ultimately, we train people on, as you go through Leon, learn to understand how to put aside the things that you think have formed you in your childhood or as you're growing up. Learn how you can free yourself from what you might call those limiting beliefs. It's a bit of a cliche, but, that's what we teach people. And for me, that's just as important as teaching them how to make a chicken wrap, which is important too. Okay. but the structure that has given us is really interesting. So, the role of positivity, the role of not forcing, which is not overexerting and obsessing, but being in flow, going for the things, the targets that present themselves. All of those things have been really instrumental to our growth at Leon. And not obsessing on the competition, recognising the downfall of the war metaphor in business, that business is not really war, despite the fact that it's become the predominant metaphor for conducting business. It's just been really instrumental to our culture. So what Julian and I wanted to do was to write a book that took people on this journey, even though it's not strictly or X Factor, but take people on this journey and help people apply it to their lives so that they are potentially less inflamed the whole time, not seeing everything as a fight. For example, I was local village. It said, fight for the village school. There was this fight to save the village school. There was another one which was fight for teenage cancer. And it's like, you know what? These are important things, but do we have to fight for them? Because people have associated fighting with winning. And often, fighting, if you look at the House of Commons, fighting is actually heat, not light. If you look at the Brexit campaign, debates, there was almost no actual debate that said what does a no deal actually look like? It was all bluster. Do you see what I mean?
That's so true,
and that's because they are set up for conflict. One side versus the other. If they were all in a Congress style setting, they might actually have to start talking some sense rather than trying to beat the other people up. And so we see that in business, we see that in politics, we see it in consumer products, we see it where businesses are trying to kill the competition rather than delight the customer. So all of those things that we've applied in Leon, in line with this idea of winning, not fighting, is supported by the methodology of Wing Chun, the methodology of this martial art. And I wouldn't have written the book if I didn't think, wouldn't have spent my spare time doing it if I didn't think that it wasn't hopefully extremely informative to a change that I think needs to take place in how we conduct business, and perhaps more broadly, how we treat each other on the planet. Because in business, in war, there's, I think it's from the Tao Te Ching. It says, "Where war has ravaged, only brambles grow." So we're destroying the planet because we're taking a short-termist war attitude. People are. You only have to look at people who were shell-shocked after World War One, or even Gulf War syndrome, to know that people who've been in war don't love it. Okay, there's some sense of camaraderie that they've achieved, but on the whole, they say, don't do it. It's not what it's cracked up to be. You get shot and everything. You get blown up. Your mates get killed. Don't do that. So it's no wonder that people are feeling stressed at work if the bosses are treating it like it's a war and like they're the soldiers. So Wing Chun is about a much more natural approach. We talk about water, we talk about trees, we talk about gardening, we talk about growth, we talk about things that nature can inspire, not things that man-made war can inspire, because perhaps they're just as useful, if not more useful, than the war idea. So that gives you some sense of what the book's about.
Well, we can't wait to read it. So when does
do you know what? When does it go out? It comes out on the 7th of November. I think people can pre-order it now on Amazon. But thank you for asking. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. We'll do that. Well, on a slightly personal note, I believe you met your wife, Katie.
Yes.
When you gate crashed an event.
No, she gate crashed actually. You're good. Can I just say, you've done excellent research.
Well,
we try. Are you sure you don't want to work for GCHQ? I think, yeah. So, yes, I did. So she had gate crashed this ball, and I was doing sound and light there. And she thought I was just some random bloke in a bomber jacket. Well, I was a random bloke in a bomber jacket. And
I can picture this now.
Yeah, I noticed. I looked at it and I thought, well, she's fit. And I thought, oh, wow, God, she's bloody gate crashed because she's got this pathetic fake tag, wristband that quite clearly is fake. So I said, look, I won't throw you. I went up to her and said, look, I know you gate crashed. But don't worry, I won't throw you out if you kiss me. But anyway, that was kind of the gist. That was kind of the gist of how we met. And and I really love her, so that's good.
I don't believe me. Did it just stop there, or did it go on?
Yeah, some stuff. So yeah, all good.
Stuff.
Yeah, ... as they say in Mamma Mia.
Awesome. Well, we mentioned earlier about the high streets.
Yeah. And it's not doing well, is it?
It's not doing particularly well. Jamie Oliver's restaurants closed down recently. How is Leon staying alive in this challenging?
I tell you what we're doing is we're outpacing the cost increases, which are significant. If I look at living wage, that's fine. Everyone was like, you know what, we can do living wage, we get it, it's a good thing. But then business rates, unreal, like a 50 to 60% increase in business rates in London, which have crippled the industry. When you only make sort of 8% profit, when business rates go up by 5% of sales, that wipes off more than half of your profit. And then when the exchange rate goes against you and rates keep going up and rents keep going up, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. It cannot survive this. So we've been basically focused on growing revenue as fast as we can, trying to outpace the kind of lions that are behind us, the cost lions that are trying to chase us, and we've managed to actually. We've increased revenue quite a lot, but there are a lot of people that it's just unsustainable. Not everybody on the high street can increase their sales by 40% over 4 years, and so those that haven't, you can see what's happened to them. And so I do feel, everyone's got their own view on why certain brands haven't stayed the course. But, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult market. And, the government takes people like Mary Portas and says, hey, Mary, do a report on how we can make the high street thrive. In the meanwhile, they've got a giant knife and they're stabbing it in the heart. So it's like, well, don't commission Mary Portas to do a report and then kill it. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, if you said to the government, I know, have you got a plan to destroy the high street? They say, yeah, don't worry, we've got a plan. We're going to do living wage, and on top of that, we're going to do business rates, and we're going to not control rents, and we're going to have some ridiculous system where one shop can increase its rent, and by law, every store on that high street has to go up to that one rent, even if it's a Saudi Arabian prince buying that shop for his wife to do some, or a Saudi Arabian princess buying it for her husband to do, a jewellery shop. Suddenly, everyone has to pay that new rent. And so, I have to say, it's a funny old country, this one, when it comes to the high street, but we're still a feudal country. If you look at who owns London, it's owned by about 5 different estates.
Yeah.
So I think we have this veneer of shopkeeper commerce overlaid onto a fundamentally feudal country still.
Well, we are running out of time, but just a couple more questions. What is the BHAG for Leon? The next 5 years, 10 years, the future?
So I think I chair something that I started for the government called the Council for Sustainable Business. And I think we've demonstrated the fact that there's something that can be done to make fast food healthy or better for you, let's put it that way. But what we have to now really prove, and we've started to prove it, is that it can be truly sustainable and that we can be a beacon for sustainability. So our big focus at the moment, probably for the next 10 or 20 years, is the whole principle of understanding how we can support biodiversity by supporting rewilding, which is rewilding of agriculture so that we buy from biodiverse farms, so that when we kit out our restaurants, that they are done in a way that supports biodiversity. The way we do wormeries or beehives or skip gardens outside the restaurants, so the restaurants themselves are helping rewilding, the fact that we can work with local schools and other institutions to do that, the fact that we can do so on a national basis with things like the Council for Sustainable Business, where our big question is, can we reserve half of the UK land mass to be friendly to nature? That's the big goal there. And can we also help rewild the people that work with us and potentially play a bigger role on the world stage in helping, and this is a real tough one, right? But how can we sting like, as in police sting like, how can we try and actually raise the sufficient money and political interest to replant the Indonesian and Amazon rainforest, which is necessary because they're the lungs that produce not just the oxygen but the phytochemicals that then impact the weather. So in broadest sense, our big focus is, can we help save the human by rewilding? That's the really big goal, and that requires us to then make some money. That requires us to grow, make some money, and to be able to fund that. And so that means good, strong, steady state of new restaurants in the UK, and a big focus on America, which is where we have a great team trying to take fast food back to the home of fast food.
Awesome. Well, I know we're short of time, a couple more minutes. It's been such a pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
How have you found it?
Or this?
Yeah.
Great, actually, because you've got lovely energy.
Thank you. Well, so
I think you're like
so
a real
humbling.
person, aren't you?
I try and take it. I try our best.
No, I get a sense that you really, you really care about what you're doing. So I found the conversation very interesting, and it's also always good. I find myself in these, when I'm articulating it to you, there's always 2 or 3 things that come to mind in terms of things that I need to carry on and focus on. I would say I would say of all of the things which I think is our biggest challenge, and it's made me, this conversation has reminded me of it, so thank you very much, is despite everything that I talk about in the book about putting aside ego, despite everything that I talk about helping people put aside fear, my biggest issue, which I'm conscious of, is I do need to kind of demystify the cult of founder. I think one of the challenges is that there tends to be a sort of, I wouldn't say deification, clearly not, but sort of a sense that the founder is somehow very special, and that everything the founder does is amazing, and we mustn't tell the founder bad news. And I think there is a requirement to humanise all business people, CEOs of big businesses, to humanise founders, whoever it might be, to be able to say, look, don't follow us, we're just very naughty boys or girls or girls. So I think it's a reminder to me, this conversation, that I need to redouble my efforts to make sure that everybody in the current company, and hopefully we do this. I was at the summer party actually, and people were coming up to me and saying, you know what, I'm not sure that we might be overloading the electricity in this restaurant, it might be a problem. And the next day I got onto that. So I do think that myself and others are approachable, but as we grow, this conversation has reminded me that we need to continue to focus on that as a major priority, to continue to stay open, to continue to make sure that people know that they can say whatever they want, and absolutely any bad news is must be communicated.
I love that.
And not seen as bad news. So thanks. So that's what this has reminded me of. So thank you.
Well, thank you for your kind words. But I do have one small favour to ask. Business is all about connections, and we can only do this by inspiring more entrepreneurs, by meeting amazing entrepreneurs like yourself. Yeah. So who do you think is the one entrepreneur you can kindly connect us to, who you think would be a great fit for the show, who is equally as successful in their own right?
I'm sure there are people who are much more successful than me. So I think you should think about this guy Justin from Responsible Travel, Justin Francis. I also think that somebody who has done. Have you met Richard Reed?
I have, but we haven't had him on the podcast yet.
Okay. I think he's got a particular, given the fact I went to college with him, he's got a particular ability at being able to take complexity and distill it into simplicity. There are 5 fundamental ways one can be creative. There's the seer who sees the future, the alchemist that joins ideas from one sector to another, the fool that can turn weakness into strength. There's the observer who notices detail, and there's the sage, which Richard is, who can take, and I mentioned this in the book, when you're not fighting, but he's very good at taking complexity and chaos and turning it into simple ideas for everyone to rally around. And I think meeting him would be good for you, and I think certainly good for your listeners.
We would love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to finish off, what is the one piece of advice you would give to a entrepreneur?
I would say, and everyone would probably say this, but don't be surprised don't be surprised if it's constantly difficult. Don't be surprised that it constantly feels a bit lonely, and be prepared to constantly adapt and change. But recognise the difference between strategic innovation and adaptation and tactical. The difference is this: when you start going down a mountain and as the water, be prepared to realise when you're going uphill and readjust and go down again. That is tactical changing and tactical movement. But don't spend your time thinking, I wish I wasn't going down this mountain, I wish I was going down another mountain. Right? That is what you might call strategic innovation, and that should happen as a last resort and very rarely, right? And try and differentiate in your mind whether you need to constantly readjust tactically, like water going down a mountain, or whether you're trying to jump out of where you are to something else. And I think that there should be lots of tactical innovation and lots of tactical readjustment, but strategic readjustment should take place rarely, and you should probably, if all else fails, stick to your original idea and not be jealous about your mates' businesses or other businesses that you may see. Because in the long run, your business will work if you continue with your tactical innovation.
Amazing. Well, John, thank you so much for your time and all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.